Welcome to another episode of Relics Radio. This is a family-friendly show, so the entire family can join us as we talk metal detecting, relic, and treasure hunting. You can also call in to the show at 270-495-0315 or join in the chat and post any comments or questions you might have. Relics Radio is also now syndicated on goodtalkradio.com and has a show each Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Arizona time. You're listening to Relics Radio of Southern Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. And we want to welcome you to a special Happy Valentine's Day Relics Radio tonight. I want to welcome all of our listeners on Spreaker.com, our main platform that we broadcast from, but also want to welcome all of our syndicated listeners that are coming to us through the Cutting Edge Network or the Good Talk Radio Network. And also we're on Podbean, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and I tell you what, it's just endless. I do believe that one day we are going to be the first metal detecting show that you'll be able to hear on the moon or on Mars. And so we're excited about that, aren't we, Jeff?
We sure are. Now, I mean, the moon, I can believe that, but Mars, man, it's going to be a long time. Maybe 50 years from now we'll be on Mars. So, and then, but yeah, I mean, what is it? Blue Tunes, Looney Tunes. So.
iTunes, Blue Tunes, Looney Tunes. We're on all them tunes, I tell you. Very fortunate, though, I tell you what, to be picked up by syndication. That was a big boost with us. To be picked up by Podbean, that's hard to say. And that's different than red bean, those of you way down south, that eat red beans and cornbread. But, yeah, it is, it's a great opportunity for us and a special happy Valentine's Day. And I'll tell you what, tonight we're coming from and Mark Hoover has really wanted me to say this word on the air. We've got a dichotomy of geography tonight. And that is, I'm coming to you from the studio here in Southern Kentucky. Our guest is out in Texas. And where are you at, Jeff?
I am in Hayesville, North Carolina. And then, of course, me and my wife come up on a Valentine/prospecting trip. So she said she wasn't going to help me look for gold until I started finding it. So, I mean, there you go.
Well, I wouldn't let her know that I'm finding anything. I just kind of keep that to myself. Because I tell you what.
I think I will.
Yeah, I tell you what. Women always just kind of sweep in and take the good stuff. I don't know why that is. They're not interested in it until the good stuff comes. And Mark Hoover said... No,
and I consider now...
Mark Hoover said rednecks don't use big words like that. I know it's hard to understand a 25-cent word when you got a nickel brain, Mark, but that's the way it is.
Well, I did have to Google it and then see what it meant, so...
Well, that's the one word right there to our very educated listeners, which we have very few. I didn't mean that. I'm just, this is the home of the rednecks, and so that's what we like to play up. I tell you what, we got no Southern gal with us tonight, though, and she's going to be right at home, isn't she?
I believe she is. We got Gypsy Jewels in the house. How about Gypsy?
Hi, how are y'all?
There you go. Y'all.
Yeah. There you go.
Y'all.
Yeah. We are great. And you?
I'm wonderful. Happy Valentine's to everyone.
Yeah.
Happy Valentine's to you.
You know what? I'm just looking back through the chat here, And let me say this, whenever we first start this out, I noticed that I'm going to say something about all you guys that are in chat. I sure hope that this is not the way you've spent your whole Valentine's Day, that you got your sweetheart something, you know. If not, you're just digging yourself a deeper doghouse by being here. But we appreciate you being here, you know. But this is the continuation of what we've called the women in metal detecting. Now, I do want to toss out a disclaimer. It's not just the women that we have here in February that we consider the women of metal detecting. We just set this month aside because it was Valentine's Day to kind of cater just to those ladies that are metal detectorists. We have had a ton of them. We're going to have more in the future. I know that we've got some more that are booked a little bit later, and you know, we've had a ton of them, haven't we, Jeff?
We sure have, and it doesn't matter if you're here this month or whatever. If you're a lady and you're a metal detector, metal detectors, you mean a lot to us. So, I mean, like I said, Devin said, we're going to have a few more of you on the show here soon. Yeah,
end of March, we're going to. Barb's going to be with us again. You know, I was thinking back, and I think maybe Carolyn Harwick and Barb were our first two ladies. And, you know, we're going to be at DIV, and we always look forward to hunting with Barb. But she was a guest with us there, and I think that Mark's going to reach out to her because we're wanting her to come on and do one of those medical shows as the weather warms up, you know, about avoiding ticks and first aid and all that kind of stuff, because that's really important whenever people start getting out. But didn't want to keep Gypsy back and hold her back or anything. Go ahead, Gypsy. The floor is going to be yours. Give us just a little bit of introduction and how you kind of got into the hobby and everything.
Okay, sure. So just a little bit about me. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Gypsy, and I have actually been metal detecting for 20 plus years now. I actually usually gauge how long I've been metal detecting by when my oldest son was born, because it wasn't but just a little while after he was born. He was still just an infant, and I got my first metal detector. And so that's history now. And you know how that is when you get your first metal detector and you don't really know. For me, I didn't know anything about metal detecting. The only thing I knew is that I had visited a local beach in Texas, and we were just visiting in Galveston, Texas at the time, and walking up to one of the little beach shops there on the beach, and up walks this couple from the beach with a metal detector in their hand. And me, I just happened to see it, and I said, "Oh, how are y'all? Did y'all have any luck metal detecting?" And they go, "Sure, and they proceeded to show me their finds that they found for the day. And I was just like, wow, you know, they had coins. They even found a ring, and I think a little necklace pendant or something. And I was just, oh, you know, I was drooling. I was sitting there, well, I want to do that. So I decided there and then that I wanted to buy a metal detector. And so as soon as I knew I was coming back to the Galveston area to visit, because we had family that lived not far from there, I went out and bought my first metal detector. Well, I went to, since I didn't know anything about metal detecting, I went to the only place I had really ever seen metal detectors was at a Radio Shack. So I went into Radio Shack, and I think I paid like $129 for one that had just the meter on it, and brought it to Galveston and got out on the beach, and I found some coins, and I found a key, no jewelry or anything, but just enough to just pique my interest, and I was hooked. And then, so right after that, I found out that my parents lived in East Texas, and some of you may know Keith Wills from BrokenDetector.com. Well, Keith owned a metal detecting store there in Gilmer, Texas, near where my parents lived, and my parents say, hey, there's a man up in Gilmer that sells metal detectors. You should go check that out. So, of course, sure enough, I did, and I met him, and I ended up, not long after that, found out that my little Radio Shack brand wasn't the best for a beach, or it was okay just starting out, but anyway, I started really digging and learning more about metal detecting. I think I bought some metal detecting books from Keith, and I just dove in head first. I started reading anything I could get my hands on, like all the magazines that were available, and then I started. I think I read all the Garrett books, and I read some of the White's books that were distributed, just anything I get my hands on, and even down to how metal detector works, you name it. I wanted to know it all.
Good. Don't we all? That's, that's kind of the way you get into it. It's the appeal, though, really, of treasure being buried out there. Now, the likelihood of any of us going out and finding massive buried treasure is probably going to be slim, but there's always that possibility. You just never know what else is going to come out of the ground. And I think that's what just keeps driving us from one hunt to the next, from one hole to the next.
That's so true, because for me, it has never been. That's always in the back of your mind that, yeah, it would be awesome, to find some massive cache or great outlaw treasure, or something really big that's worth a lot of money. But for me, it was never about that. I can remember, I think part of what drove me to the interest in metal detecting is my father growing up, and my grandfather, and just all the people that influences you when you're a kid and growing up. My grandfather and my father used to take me out, and we would go to old dumps, and my granddad would show me, hey, you can look, here's an old burnt couch. Now look over here down where the couch is burned down, and you're going to find coins right under here where they've fallen down to the ground while it's burning. And sure enough, I go do that. Or let's go to the bleachers at the football stadium. And my great uncle, he would walk around town every morning, and he would come back with a handful of change and sometimes some jewelry, and this was all surface finds. And I think as a young kid, you're always, you can remember any kind of treasure story or anything lost and found. It's just fascinating as a kid. And so for me, it was that, and then learning once you find something old and historic, that just, was the icing on the cake for me. And that's the drive for me today, is digging something of historical, but even if it's, for me, historical may not be, because of where I live in Texas, it may not be anything from the 1700s or 1600s or anything like that. It's just something even from the 20s, to me, is just fascinating. Yeah,
history is history. And, and as most of you know, I do history clips. And whenever I started doing those, I did them to start with on spectacular finds. Jeff found a pistarine from the early 1700s, and I did a clip on it. But then as it progressed and I saw that people kind of liked those clips, I started doing them just on everyday things. And history is history. Hey, guys, we need to take a short break right here and go to a commercial, and we'll be right back.
We used to looking good in our new Relics Radio t-shirts.
Yeah, Ken and Mark Guthrie of detectees.com done brung 'em to us.
Yep. And they makes other shirts, too.
Yeah, boy. Detectees.com can handle tees for your club, hunt, or any other promotion folks may have.
They even got the Wide Pride shirts.
Yeah, them boys does the manatee crawl.
Yeah, scooting on their bellies.
That's what I said. The manatee crawl.
Looks like slugs eating jelly.
So whether you hunt horizontal or vertical, tell the folks where they need to go, TJ.
www.detectees.com.
I tell you what, it never gets old. That commercial just never, ever gets old. Our good friends Mark and Ken Guthrie over at where at, Jeff?
Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Detectees.com is where you need to go. And you know what, guys? They do a lot more than just metal detecting shirts. If you've got a kid or a grandkid that's in sports, if you have a fun run in your town, if you have a fundraiser in your town, if you just have a family get together for the summer and you want to be able to, all of you wear the same shirt so you look out on the beach and you know where everybody's at, go to detectees.com. They're going to make a shirt to your specifications. They're going to put whatever artwork that you want on it, and you're going to get the very best price that you can. And when you do, tell them that Relics Radio sent you, and they'll give you even a better deal. Gypsy, you are a representative with Garrett. Of course, you were raised up in Texas, Odessa, Texas, the hometown of Mark Hoover. And I'm also from West Texas. I'm a Lubbock boy. I tell you what, they just a lot of good things came out of Texas, aren't they?
Sure did, I guess. I was just commenting, somebody made a comment about my accent. Sometimes I worry about that. You know, me and my videos, you know, you may experience the same thing when you hear yourself in your YouTube video. It's like, I can't stand to listen to myself. But then some people say, "Oh, I love your accent." But yeah, I'm a West Texas girl. I was actually born in San Angelo, Texas, and then lived in Galveston, Texas for a while. Now, a little bit about, you already heard, I guess, how in Galveston, Texas is where I kind of started learning how to metal detect, and there on the beach. And I actually ended up starting a metal detecting club in Galveston that's still there today, the Galveston Island Treasure Club. And I was the president of the club up until I moved, and then moved out of state just for about 3 years to Louisiana, then ended up moving back to Texas. And I think I've lived all over Texas. I lived in South Texas and, North Texas, West Texas, and now the Austin, Texas area. But, yeah, I grew up, lived in McCamey, Texas for a while, and lived in Odessa, Texas. And then now, not too far from the about 3-hour drive to the home office of Garrett Manufacturing. So, yeah.
It was just natural.
Texas girl.
That they would pick you up. And I think it was a good choice, don't you, Jeff?
I sure do. I think it was a real good choice. I mean, of course, you got Rusty Curry, and of course, he's not very good to look at, so they had to pick a woman. So, but you've done some good work with Garrett. I can see that.
Well, thank you. I'm just getting started with Garrett, and so I'm really excited to be working with Garrett and the Garrett team, and getting to know all of them. And last year, I got to go to the the Charles Garrett Memorial Hunt, which years ago, it kind of goes back to Galveston. When I lived in Galveston, I ended up opening up a metal detecting store. And that's where our passion sometimes takes you is I'd have people walking up to me on the beach when I was metal detecting, and they go, "Hey, where can I get a metal detector like that?" Because they've seen me dig something, and it kind of evolved into, well, I might as well sell them and make a little extra cash on the side. So yeah. Anyway, I opened a metal detecting store, started the metal detecting club there, and then when I moved away, I decided, I really just didn't make much money. There's not that much of a markup on the detectors, but it was fun, and I met a lot of wonderful people and got more people involved in the hobby, just starting in the hobby and all of that. So that was a really fun time. And then now it's evolved into me starting my YouTube channel. And those of you that have not checked out my YouTube channel, it's Zero Discrimination on YouTube, and would love it if you checked out some of my videos and like and subscribe. I always appreciate all of my viewers, and as I know y'all do on your channel, Digging with Seven, Loy, and you and Jeff, and
yeah, and then Tennessee Jeff has got his. It's Tennessee Jeff, and that's where we make our millions, isn't it? That's why we want you to keep coming and listening. And I didn't want to cut in on Jeff's time or anything, but I do want to say that I have Zero Discrimination on YouTube. I've got the link in the description of this show. I've also got your Facebook, I've got your Twitter, and I've got your Instagram. So all of those places, all you got to do is go to the description here, click on it, and you're going to find her. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, if you're making millions, I'm doing something wrong, buddy. I'm missing some of that. So. Gypsy, what about some of your other representatives you've got going on?
So I just got, became part of the Garrett team. And then right after that, I have recently the Digger's Den team. There's just three of us, actually. It's Brian Harvey and my buddy, my co-host on the podcast that I'm a co-host of, All Metal Mode, my buddy Mike Hare, and he also has another co-host on Tuesday nights. I'm on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Was it Mountain? I'm so bad at the time.
No, it's Eastern time. They're on at 8 o'clock Eastern. Y'all are on 8 o'clock Eastern. Right. I don't know on the others. And he's got a UK show that is on Thursday in the afternoon because of the time change and difference over there.
Right, because the over there, they're different. They're asleep while we're awake most of the time, or getting ready to go to sleep. But
and Gypsy, that's where I'm at right now. So I'm on their time.
Your time zone change. It's hard to get used to all these time zone changes. But yeah, I'm on Texas time. That's what I'm on. That's all I can tell you.
That's God's time right there. Central time is God's time. That's where he wanted. I think he wanted everybody to be right there. But yeah, you're hobnobbing now with Nugget Noggin and with who else is with Garrett Aqua Chigger and all of those people. Who else? Who am I forgetting? Jocelyn?
So. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to hang with them this last year at Jocelyn at Relic Recoverist on YouTube, and got to hang out with her. And then Bo, most everyone here knows Bo, which is from Aqua Chigger. And then there's Nugget Noggin, and I just recently got to hang out with him at, we went to, we were sent to the Watts booth over in Denver, Colorado, and got to help work with Wayne Nugget Brain there to help spread the news about the Watts organization, Worldwide Association of Treasure Seekers, and got to hang out with Nugget Noggin, and I also got to hang out with him and detect with him last year, and I think he's going to be, he told me, at the Garrett Hunt coming up at the end of March at the Garrett Memorial Hunt, but I got to detect with him, and he is just a really sweet kid. I call him a kid because he's 25 and looks like he's 19. Anyway, Michael is a really, Michael Bennett is his name, Nugget Noggin, a really sweet guy, and we got to hang out and talk a lot about metal detecting and about our channels and stuff at the Denver, Colorado show there. It was at the it was an International Sportsman Expo, so that was really neat.
I've seen some live streams from there. You did a live stream, and I tell you what, you didn't do yourself any good by getting 5280 and Ken King Adventures in Dirty in there with. No, I'm just joking. Those are great guys, but 5280. He did a live stream, and I got in on that, and I hollered at you on that live stream. And it looked like a really, really fun time.
It was fun. It was really fun. I was so excited to get to see them. I got to hang out with Tony from 5280 Adventures last year at the Mancos Rendezvous hunt in Colorado, and I'll be going again this year. I think Garrett will be sending me. And it's a fun time. This year, I hear we're having some major big prizes. There's going to be some caches that people will be metal detecting, and we're also going to be doing some gold prospecting this year, get to do some gold panning. I've never go panned for gold, so that'll be fun. Might need some of your expertise, Jeff, on that, since I've never done it.
Well, hopefully I'll get some this weekend. If I do, I'll let you know. So
I want to see some big nuggets, some big gold nuggets.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. If I do, I'll buy the place and we can all come up here.
And
there you go.
Jeff and Jennifer want to see some big nuggets too. Everybody wants to see big nuggets whenever you go out like that. But you're talking about these shows. Jeff, that's the highlight of our year when we get to go to Chattanooga, or we go to Virginia, or we went to South Carolina and get to walk around those shows and meet people that we talk to every day, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, when you and we first started doing this show, and then, of course, went to Chattanooga was actually my first Civil War show that I'd ever been to, and had a great time. And then we turned around, went with American Digger magazine to South Carolina, and had a great show. And in between that time, I'd went to Franklin, Tennessee, which is one of the biggest Civil War shows out there. But I mean, it was so nice just being out there and seeing all the relics and doing our live show, and everybody just coming up. And I mean, it was awesome how it worked out. So. And hopefully we can do that more and more.
Yeah, we've and we're going to do it in the 28th of this month, or of March, excuse me, whenever we go to digging in Virginia. But that's when the Garrett Hunt is, isn't it, Gypsy?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. That's when the Garrett Hunt is, because I want to know when y'all's next ones are, because I'd love to come up sometime and visit with y'all and go to one of those shows, because the only shows I've ever really been to, treasure and metal detecting relic type, were the watch shows that were put on in Texas, and the Texas treasure shows I used to go to a long time ago, but I've never been. I would love to go.
Well, the Chattanooga show is July the 27th. I don't know if that's too far to travel or not, but that's in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we'll be live there with the with American Digger, and I guess that's kind of what got me roped into now being a producer and a co-host on American Digger. It's all your fault, Jeff. We went to all them shows, and then you got me all hooked up.
And it's not my fault. You're just good at what you do. And then I meant to say congratulations on that if I hadn't already sent you a text message. But, that's a good opportunity that anybody would love to have. Gypsy, have you ever been to DIV or thought about going to DIV?
I never have. That would be another awesome thing. I'm hoping that now that I'm part of the Garrett team that I'll be going on more of these future things. Right now, I'm just kind of, like I said, just became part of their team. So the first thing I'm going on is actually this coming week on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm going to be driving over to my brain, Crockett, Texas, and we're going to be metal detecting on part of some private land. They're actually owned by Miss Garrett, and it was passed on, I think some family that was passed on in her family line that actually Charles Garrett himself got to metal detect on part of the property years ago. And I think from what I understand or what I was told is she purchased some new property adjacent to this property that she owns, and there was old homesteads on the property, and so that's where we're going to be going. Although I did hear from Steve Moore from Garrett today, he's supposed to give me a call tomorrow, that the weather is looking like a lot of rain. So if we get too rained out, they may have some backup spots for us to hunt. But hopefully the rain won't be too bad. I know it's definitely 50% chance on Tuesday, I think, there. But
well, you can't.
We'll see.
You can't control the weather,
yeah.
though. I mean, you never can.
You sure can't. Rain or shine, it doesn't matter. I've hunted in in all kinds of weather. It really doesn't. The weather doesn't bother me at all. It's just, of course, the lightning. You can't.
Yeah. We need to.
But
I need to jump in here. We got to pay some bills and need to run a commercial. We'll be right back.
Okay.
If your passion is metal detecting, then you know how much your success is based on the equipment you use. Let my buddy Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, help you with that. Tim is an authorized dealer of Mine Lab, Garrett, XP Deus, and Macro detectors and supplies, and also carries many aftermarket items. Murray Branch Outdoors is not only competitive in their prices, but the service after the sale is second to none. Tim not only sells detectors, he uses them, and so he can answer any question that you might have. Murray Branch Outdoors also deals in used detectors, and he'll take your old detector in on trade when you decide to upgrade. So give Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors a call at 615-948-4611 or visit his website at www.murraybranchoutdoors.com, and be sure and tell him Relics Radio sent you. And also in the chat tonight is Tony Dees. You know him as North Florida Beach Hunter. He just got a hold of Tim and picked him up an Equinox 800, a Profine 35, an NX6 shovel, a dig bag. He got the whole business, you know. He got the whole package right there. And I noticed in chat that he said that he got that today. And he will tell you that Tim is a good guy to deal with, and we'll tell you as well. But let me tell you this. Whenever you go to his website and you look at the prices that he has, that will take you to the manufacturers and everything. Be sure that you go to the top of the page and look at the telephone number. Call Tim, tell him you heard about it on Relics Radio, and you're going to get a very special deal. I guarantee you. We want to talk in this segment here a little bit about using those Garrett metal detectors. And what are you using right now? What have you got the Max, don't you, Gypsy?
Yeah, so currently I'm using the Garrett 18 Max, and I was recently also, before the Max, I owned the Garrett AT Pro, and then recently, when Garrett came out with the Sport package, I got another AT Pro Sport package that they supplied me with. And so I've been kind of going back and forth with the Garrett AT Pro and the AT Max, but I actually just love my Max. I've been able to go over some spots that I've metal detected before over the years with my different detectors. Number one, my MindLab machine that I used for a long time, and that I use my MindLab. I've used White's. I've used Fisher. I've used just about almost every brand out there on the market over the years because I've been metal detecting for 20 years. And when I was a metal detecting dealer, although I do sell metal detectors now with Digger's Den, just recently became part of their sales team. Back when I was a dealer then, I was fortunate enough to try so many different brands. And over the years, I always kept coming back to Garrett. Number one reason for that for me was my budget. As an artist, as an artist, you've heard the term starving artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you make your living as an artist, sometimes you don't always have the funds you want, so I had actually tossed around I wanted a waterproof metal detector. I was looking at a few other brands that have a waterproof VLF machine because I already owned a waterproof submersible Sea Hunter Mark II that I used for years in Galveston, and I found many rings. And
I like that. I like that detector. I had one of those. I sold it recently because I didn't use it as much. Yeah. But I tell you what, Jeff, we keep coming back to Garrett stuff, don't we? I mean, we both have them, but we use other stuff. But my old standby is an AT Pro, and I know you are too, right?
That is right. I mean, that's the detector I brought with me this weekend. And then, of course, I was going to do a little creek hunting and then just checking the yard out here and see if there was any Civil War activity and stuff. But, yeah, the AT Pro. So, Gypsy, you say you went over some property with the Max that you've already been over with the AT Pro and found some more stuff?
Yeah, so what I did is I had my cousin, I'm fortunate enough that my cousin owns about 200 acres over in East Texas, and there was an old homestead on there where his grandparents lived, and it is one of those that has more iron than anything. I mean, I know if anyone of you've ever hunted the old home sites with, it's just, dates back to the 1800s where you're digging every kind of farm implement and every kind of piece of iron imaginable, and you're hunting and the house had burned. So you're working in not only high iron, but even, tons and tons of nails and debris from the house burning. And so I've metal detected over the years with almost every metal detector I ever owned. And this home site here, I went back with my Max when I got it, and I started pulling silver that I missed with my Pro, and I missed with my MindLab, and I missed with detector after detector. Now, it doesn't always mean it was the machine. As you all know, sometimes it just happens to be just the way you ground balanced it perfect that day, just the right amount of rain, down to everything. There's a science to it too, as we all know. Your ground can be too wet or, blah, 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 blah. But what I liked about it is a lot of the soil in East Texas around where my parents live and my family lives over there is a highly mineralized soil. It is so highly mineralized. In the past, there were some detectors you couldn't even hardly put on, you couldn't even detect with because the iron ore there. So I went back over this farmstead with my Max, and I dug silver that I missed. And then if you go back in my videos, if you get a chance, go back. Ringy and his wife Carlotta. Carlotta has family that lives in East Texas, not too far from there, and I found out, they were coming, and I invited them to come go metal detecting with me on the farm out there. And so what I did is when they came in, and in fact, I think on Anaconda Treasure, he's got a Tim, which is Ringy. Most of y'all know. Mm-hmm. He has his version of their trip there to the farm, and we pulled more stuff from that same farm with our 18 Maxes. Going back over this, so I just love my Max. I love my Pro, but that Max is. People will say, "Oh well, that don't take the time to get acquainted with their detector and jump the gun and say, oh, it's too chatty or it's too this or it's too that." It's just all about really taking the time to learn your detector, learn the proper settings for the type of situation you're detecting in, and taking your time and it's a deep machine. It's really good.
And I've got a couple of local guys that live where I hunt at, and they went out and bought them two AT Maxes, and man, they are doing great. Of course, they discovered a campsite, and it's just I think they've been 8 times now, and then it's just bullets everywhere, buttons. I mean, they are doing great with the Maxes, and I've heard people say that the sound of the Max was kind of like the AT Gold. Is that true?
Yeah, and I've never really used the AT Gold. I've heard it and detected with other people that use the AT Gold, and they do sound very similar. To me, it's still different, just enough to where I can tell the difference, but it's very close to the AT Gold, but yet still has enough differences that just sets it apart, I think, from the Gold and from the Pro, to me.
I like the sound of the Pro a whole lot better than I do the Gold. And Jeff used the Gold for a little while his AT Pro was on the fritz. And neither one of us really liked the sound. Of course, I know it's what you get used to. And, they're all good machines. What coil is the coil of choice for you? Does it depend on where you're hunting?
It kind of depends on where I'm hunting, and I even cross over. I've bought the nail coils and the extra coils, that you can add on. But I keep going back to the 5x8 coil. That thing, I am amazed sometimes at the depth. The rule of thumb is, you generally 2 to 3 inches bigger than the coil is about the depth you're going to get on something like that. But that little double D 5x8 coil that Garrett makes, oh my gosh.
I love it.
I like it because I do too. You can get in between some of those iron targets and pop out stuff that, you've missed at places you thought you hunted out. And with even other detectors and even other small coils. And I just love my 5x8 coils. That's my go-to.
And me and Jeff, we use those small coils whenever we hunt those old house sites because you're picking through so much junk and everything.
Right.
Oh, yeah. That's right. We had a question in the chat, Little Fork Ranger. Is Garrett, are they working on a multi-frequency machine, or can you tell us?
Well, I'll tell you this. I recently got to visit Garrett Manufacturing twice lately, and the first time I visited, I got a full tour, which I was lucky enough years ago. When I was a manufacturer, I brought a detector by to the manufacturing facility there in Garland, Texas, and I was lucky enough, to get to see the museum and all that then. Well, they've added on since then, and that was years and years ago. And I got to tour the facility and see the manufacturing and the process, and it's just fascinating. And what they do, and individually, each detector, how much love and double checking goes into each machine, and care is taken into that at that manufacturing facility. The one thing I did get to meet some of the technology people there, but that was the one area I was not allowed to go into.
That's where they're working on the multi-frequency, right in there.
That's probably where they're working on the multi-frequency. I'm hoping that from my talk with, Von Garrett and some of the other people that work at the manufacturing facility, and I got the pleasure of meeting Miss Garrett. I know Garrett is on top of the cutting edge of whatever's, of technology. Charles Garrett worked with NASA years ago. Even part of his technology and his brilliance is on the moon. Talking about going to the moon and Mars, Loy, earlier. And,
we're going to take a Garrett with us when we go, too.
We're going to take a Garrett with us, too.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I'm dead serious about this. There is part of his invention on the moon as we speak that got left there. Charles Garrett worked with Neil Armstrong.
Yep.
Years ago.
No kidding. I had no idea.
No
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And and Neil Armstrong came to their house, and I got so tickled at hearing this story from Von Garrett. I hope it's okay for me to share this stuff, but he was sharing with me that Neil Armstrong came there to talk about this thing that they were working on together that was going to go on the moon, and what was so neat is his mother Miss Garrett served them. It was tuna fish. I don't remember now if it was tuna fish sandwiches or tuna fish and crackers. But tuna fish, and that's such a Texas thing. But
you've got
anyway,
to, Lloyd.
I got to do it.
Yeah.
Let me tell a quick story here real quick. This is and by the way, guys, I'm in the works on doing a new YouTube thing, and it's going to be stories from my youth and stuff. And if you guys want to try and name that, give me a 2 or 3 word name. Now, Mark Hoover came up with the Legend of Loy. I hate to use that because I don't consider myself to be a legend, and I don't want to be.
Legends of Loy.
Yeah. There you go. LOL. Yeah, it is a laugh out loud moment. But my grandmother made the best tuna fish sandwiches, and I ate those things for 15 years and stayed with her every weekend. And then when she got so old she couldn't drive, she would just call down to the neighborhood grocery store, and they would pack up all of the groceries that she ordered. And I was driving at the time because I was about 16 years old, and I'd drive down there and get her groceries. There's a young girl in there about my age, and I'm trying to flirt with her, and she's trying to flirt with me. You know how it is when you're young. So she strikes up a conversation, and she says, how many cats has your grandmother got? And I said, cats? My grandmother ain't got no cats. I said, she got a parrot named Jerry. And I said, Jerry will sit in the window there and holler, here, kitty, 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 kitty. And I said, these neighbor cats will run up. And I said, Jerry go, ha, 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 ha. I said, but no, she ain't got no cats. She said, I know she got cats. And then the owner of the store said, I know she's got cats too. I said, what makes y'all say she got cats? And the owner of the store said, she been ordering 9 Lives tuna, here for at least 10 or 15 years. And it dawned on me, them tuna fish sandwiches that we were eating were made from 9 Lives tuna. Now, it didn't kill me, but for a long time, I had to fight the urge every time I went to the bathroom not to dig a hole and cover it back up.
So that's why you love catnip now so much.
And we've lost our guest.
That's so hilarious. Oh my goodness. I've
got
that's the funniest story ever.
Well, I've got a whole bunch more, and that's what I'm going to do. Those are about 2-minute little clips, and but I want all you guys on Relics Radio in the chat and everything to toss out some names. Give me some names for that, because I plan on starting that probably here in a couple of weeks, and I'll probably start with that story there. But we've got to pay some bills and try to get all this in our syndicated part of the show, so we'll be right back. If you want to keep up with what's going on in the metal detecting world, then you need to be a subscriber to American Digger magazine. Butch and Anita Holcomb are the publishers of the magazine and have won awards for 3 straight years for being the best digger magazine on the market. American Digger magazine is available in both print and digital formats, so no matter where you live in the world, you can enjoy the latest happenings in the hobby. You can get in touch with American Digger magazine by going to americandigger.com or give them a call at 770-362-8671. And be sure and tell them that you heard it on Relics Radio. And while I'm talking about American Digger magazine, I want to remind you, I've got an article in this issue, January, February, The Great Silver Hoard with Wes Stringer, Jeff Ford, and Chris Hamsoff. That article starts on page 30, so if you don't mind, if you'll go over there and give it a look and tell Butch how much that you enjoyed that article. And also, beginning this Monday, I will be the producer and one of the hosts on American Digger Relic Roundup that comes on at 9 o'clock Eastern Time every Monday. So looking forward to that as well. Hey, Gypsy, you and I talked, and being raised up there in Texas, really out a little ways from Odessa, was a place called Castle Gap that you went to as a child with your father. Talk about that for just a little bit.
Sure. So, I lived outside of Odessa, Texas. I actually graduated from Big Spring, Texas, which is about 30 miles from Odessa. Outside of Odessa, about another 30 miles, there's Crane, Texas, and then McCamey, Texas. And so as you're approaching McCamey, Texas, on the highway, you see it is flat. If any of you have ever been to West Texas in that area, you're talking flat area with not a tree in sight except for mesquite trees, which you know this, Lloyd.
Yeah.
Mesquite trees, dust, cactus.
Tumbleweeds and horned toads.
And tumbleweeds and horned toads. Oh, my gosh, I could tell you some funny stories about those little horned toads. Growing up in Odessa, I used to catch them as a kid. So a little bit about that, and so as you can see for miles and miles, and all you can see is the little oil things go up and down. That's about all you can see for miles and miles when you're driving out through there. Well, as you get closer to McCamey, you come upon these mountains out in the middle of nowhere. There's these flat top mountains, these mesas. Well, this area was called the Permian Basin area, which, if some of you know, Permian, the Permian area, or the area where it was underwater for years, the seabed. It's an ancient seabed. There's tons of fossils. Well, my dad would take us out to these McCamey Mountains out there as a kid, and we would go hiking all over those mountains. I was a little mountain goat. And I only wish I would have had a metal detector back then if I even knew about metal detecting. Because, oh, man, I would have had a field day. So, yep, and Mark just said prairie dogs. You got to mention prairie dogs and the dust storms. Because if you've never been through a West Texas dust storm, you just don't, you don't know what dust storm is.
No, you don't.
Right, Roy?
I tell you, they can come up, and I mean, the sky is just blood red. You can see it. Of course, she's right. There's not a tree. Well, they had a tree there in Lubbock. It was in the museum, but it cost you $1 to go see it. And whenever back in 1978, I guess it was 79, whenever Raina and I got married. And by the way, me and Raina are the only two people that you know that have celebrated our second 40th wedding anniversary. We went on an anniversary trip last year, and we thought it was 40 years. It's actually 39, so we had to redo it this time. But anyway, we moved out there for 18 months, and she'd never seen a dust storm. And they were calling for a major dust storm with very high winds. And, 50 or 60 mile an hour was normal back then. But it was 92 miles an hour. The wind blew just straight. And this is just dust and sand. And Raina was trying to wipe on the tables and get the dust off and everything. And I told her, I said, you're just wasting your time. Wait till it's all over and then clean up, And we're looking out through the picture window of the house, and there's a big wheel. Nobody's on it now, but one of those little 3-wheel big wheels passes the house at 92 miles an hour. And we just turn and look at each other. And I noticed that we had dust on our face, but you couldn't tell. But there's 2 little tear tracks that are running down her cheeks. And I looked at her and I said, "Welcome to Texas."
Is that when you moved back to Kentucky?
When my 18-month contract was up, we didn't even try to load our furniture. We called a used furniture store. He came and made us an offer on everything. We throwed our clothes in a suitcase, and we came back to Kentucky. And we're not leaving. Now, me and Jeff may go to the Garrett hunt next year, but that's as close as I'm going to get to Texas again.
Yeah, we need to get y'all to the Garrett hunt. So that would be wonderful to get to at least detect with y'all there.
Oh yeah, I'd love to do that and come out there and do a live show as well. But we're talking about though, I heard you and Mike Hare on All Metal Mode talking about the Castle Gap there. It reminded me of the Cumberland Gap here in Kentucky, and I'm gonna let Jeff talk about some down in Tennessee. But this is a place, and no matter where you live, you've got something similar to the geography of this, even if you don't have mountains. Anything that funnels people or traffic into a very small area is one of the greatest places to start prospecting for a good place to metal detect, because you had people that were coming through the Castle Gap, you had people that were coming through the Cumberland Gap. And what have y'all got down in Tennessee there, Jeff?
We got Hoover's Gap. We've got we had several gaps, and I mean, even if they don't have a big name, you look at these hills, big hills or big mountains, and you see like a low spot going in between them, like just a regular gap. Somebody in the past has used that gap, and I mean, once they get on the other side, they may build a home site on either side. So, I mean, any gap should be, a real good place to detect.
Should be a hot spot, no doubt. Hey, guys, we're going to open up the phone lines, 270-495-0315, because we are past the syndicated part of our show. So call in if you've got a question for Gypsy, 270-495-0315, and I see that Tennessee Jeff has already put that in the chat there. And,
I'm surprised it made it, because with this Wi-Fi I'm working with in North Carolina, I'm 14 miles off in the middle of nowhere. I'm doing good to do what I'm doing. So.
Yeah. And everybody else don't know, but I've lost Jeff 2 or 3 times, and I just keep rolling with the flow. I look over here and look at his little icon, and sometimes it's got a green check, and sometimes the computer looks at me and says, "I don't know where Jeff's at."
Well, I don't even know where I'm at. So.
Gypsy, you've never metal detected Castle Gap, have you?
No, I wasn't fortunate enough to metal detect there. Now, the neat thing about like what you're saying about Castle Gap, that was the main, to get all the way through from Mexico, all the way, the passage, all the way to California, and even during the 49ers, heading to California to the gold rush going through there. And then so, the legends, there's so many big treasure legends that go through that gap where people were raided, but not only that, at the gap, there was an old, the Butterfield mail state, they had stations there where the mail, they would be bringing mail through there. So if you think about the area where you live, what you were saying earlier and what Jeff was saying, there were so many people traveling on wagons and horseback through these passages because those were the main roads. Those were the main passages back then before the roads as we have them, highways and stuff today. So that's what you want to look for in metal detecting. Any place near old road, an old passage, and creeks, springs, any place like that, which most of it's common sense. I know a lot of y'all that metal detected for a year, but maybe someone just starting out wanting to find some places to go metal detect. Those are the kind of places you really want to look for.
Yeah, and it's completely different way back than it is now because you had to have water, and you'd have those natural passageways, which a gap is always that way. But, you don't have to have mountains to have a gap. A natural gap can occur just in a holler or something. And, that's what we call them in Kentucky. I don't know what they call them up north, a valley, I guess, or something. But, you can just look a wash. You can look at your terrain and figure those things out. And it's always a good place to look. But, some of the research that I did out in Texas, I know that there were a lot of the early Spaniards that came up. Cortez came up through, and I think Cortez reportedly came through Castle Gap.
Right.
I heard you guys talking about a theory that maybe Maximilian, the president of Mexico, brought treasure.
Yeah. There's a huge legend on that there, and reportedly even some gold bars found years ago, and even one that my father claimed that when he was a kid, he remembers being in the newspaper, some young young guy finding a gold bar, and there was pictures of him with that gold bar that found out there. Now, I'm sure he didn't find it with the metal detector then. Probably in one of those caves up there. There were so many caves, and you had Native Americans, Indians, that were attacking and raiding some of these people. They were burning because, there was this constant, this is where they lived, and here's all these people coming in, and invading, their territory, so it's normal for them to fight back too. So so much history there.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah, it is. And you guys were talking on y'all show on All Metal Mode about maybe trying to get hooked up and get a few people and go down to Castle Gap and hunt. That's a little bit too much of a road trip right now for me and Jeff, but we may try to get down to the Garrett hunt. In the remaining time that we have, I certainly do want to get into the fact that you are an artist. Tell everybody about that.
Oh, okay. So most of you already know that what I do by trade, besides my metal detecting, and now with Garrett as part of their team member, is teaming up with Garrett, and my YouTube channel. Zero Discrimination, and then I also have the part-time a sales rep for Digger's Den, selling metal detectors for extra income and stuff. I recently was working for Pino's Palette. It's a franchise doing art classes, and I was an art instructor there, but unfortunately they have just closed their doors, and so I found myself without a job. And so now I'm doing some commission work with my art when I'm not out metal detecting or working on editing videos and filming videos. I'm painting, and so I'm currently working on one for a friend that has a YouTube channel that is in the gold prospecting and gold panning, and so I'm hoping to work on and finish that painting tomorrow, and I'll be posting it on my Facebook Zero Discrimination page. I'll post a photo there, and probably my Instagram too, once I get it done, and then I get it mailed off to him. So I'm doing that for extra money right now, and doing a little bit of art. But I think my main thing, and I've had people ask me, you know, hey, you're in metal detecting. People would pay money for, you know, to paint them out metal detecting or something like that. Hopefully my goal is to be able to paint, you know, what I want to paint, and what, you know, like I think you saw my buffalo that I recently painted.
Did you see that
on my Instagram?
Did you see that picture, Jeff? The buffalo she did.
I sure did. I sure did. It was a great picture. And then every picture I've seen that you've painted has been a great picture. And I'm trying to figure out, how do you have time to metal detect, work with Garrett? And then, I mean, of course, I know the paintings, they don't come overnight. You can't do them overnight. So I'm just trying to figure out how you get time to do all this.
It's hard because, you know, I'm looking at my oldest son now. He's 20, going on 21. And my youngest son's 15. So at that age, they think they know it all. My 15-year-old does.
Oh, I know that.
They think they know it all. So he's kind of independent now, thank goodness. Most of the time, independent, except for when it comes to dinner and stuff like that. But other than that, it allows me now more free time to get out and metal detect. But also, you know, time to paint. Yeah. I actually have, that's where my education lies, is I have a bachelor's in the fine arts. So that's, I've been, you know, drawing and painting ever since I could pick up a paintbrush or a pencil. So it's my other love. But so it's hard. Sometimes, you know, I'm torn. Do I need to paint today, or do I want to go metal detecting? And
that'd be easy for me.
Detecting wins.
Yeah, me too.
That'd be easy for me.
I will have to say metal detecting wins, and but you know, sometimes you got to pay the bills, and it depends on what
Yeah.
that comes first.
Yeah.
Usually the bills.
Hey guys, our good friend Chris Cook out of Australia. I just I noticed him in the chat. I was going to mention that a while ago and never did get a chance to. Gypsy, you and I were fortunate enough to be asked to be on a panel on YouTube creators this last week, and I mentioned to you that your art also has a metal detecting component to it, because we're all trying to do better thumbnails and everything, and you can bring the whole concept of art into that. Tell people a few tips on doing a thumbnail that makes them more appealing, that draws the eye where you want it to go and what have you.
Okay, sure. So I'm learning now as a YouTube creator, which for me, I've only had my YouTube channel. It's just now hit 2 years, and I just hit recently over 4,000 subscribers. So I'm still learning. And one thing I've learned is your thumbnail needs, you know, that is what is going to make people click on your video, especially if they're not subscribed to your channel. And for me, the number one thing that's got to grab you, got to have something on there that really grabs someone's attention, and the eye flow, just like a painting. The flow of your eye is the most important. The first thing that's going to jump out at you, if you found silver in that video, well, yeah, you might want to. A lot of people will put like a coin, and then the way their eye flows Then you have your lettering off to the side, silver, or you need to always use the bright colors too to really grab their attention. So I usually use yellow and red is what I'm finding to really, in primary colors that really grab your attention. Something bright that's going to make the eye follow. Color is so important with art, and it's very important in your thumbnail too. And something that's going to draw the eye in and then make you say, that's interesting. And then your photo. Photography is a big art too. And I know, Roy, you know, because you're having to, it's a constant struggle with finding the right photo for your thumbnail too.
Right.
For me, it's I don't always take the time, and I'm trying to get into the habit to take that photo of that particular find that I really found the most interesting of that hunt, or having someone or take a photo or take a what's the word I'm looking for? Snapshot. Going back in.
Yeah, to highlight your thumbnail or to, kind of illustrate. And you and I tossed around the idea the other night of talking about, if you can imagine, take a square box, which that's going to be your picture. It's actually not a square box, it's a rectangle, but
rectangle.
Take that and divide it up into 3 equal parts horizontally, divide it up into 3 equal parts vertically. And then you've got the theory of thirds, which is a lot of artists look at that whenever they look at the eye appeal of a picture. And you want whatever you're drawing your attention to be at an intersection of those thirds. Like if you got a silver coin and somebody's holding it up, move that picture around, enlarge it, do whatever you can to get that silver coin at an intersection of thirds. It's not going to be the center of that picture is the worst place to put what you want people to look at. And the eye is normally going to go from left to right. So if you start your text on the left side and then you draw the eye to that big silver real or $50 or gold coin or whatever it is, you can make it more appealing by taking an artistic view of doing a thumbnail. And a thumbnail is important. A good title will get people to come. Good tags will get people to come. There's just so much technology and really a science in getting people to come to your YouTube channel. Now, I would caution one thing. Somebody put in the chat here, clickbait, where you use a title to say something. People will jump in on a video if you make a promise, but if you don't keep your promise, you're probably going to lose those people. Do you agree with that, Gypsy?
I totally agree with that. If I'm putting any kind of clickbait in mine, I better have found something that, like what I'm saying in my title or on my thumbnail in my video, because if I'm putting something up there that I didn't find or something up there that is misleading, that's basically false advertisement to me, or a lie, basically. I don't like that kind of clickbait. The only kind of clickbait I'm going to put out there is if I found silver in my video, or I found an old coin, or if I found a really cool relic, I might put that in my title or my thumbnail. But I would never. You know that is right. It was you talking about clickbait. Okay, there was a couple of videos of mine that I published a couple of weeks ago. Okay, I put on there Civil War. I was hunting Civil War relics and found a gun. And well, of course, I was hunting Civil War relics, and then of course I dug down and found this gun, and it turned out to be a BB gun. So is that still baiting?
No, I really don't think so. Some people might take offense at that, and some people might say it's clickbait. I'm kind of on the fence on that. I will use the word amazing, found these amazing relics. But now, to some people, a Civil War bullet is an amazing find. A colonial flat button is an amazing find. And to some people, they'll say, oh, it was just a bullet. Well, there's half of the United States that can't go out and find a three-ringer. And there's half of the United States that can't go out and find a barber. And so if you put an amazing something, I think you can get by with that. But you really have to pay attention to what you're saying and come close to producing. But no, I don't think it's clickbait, Jeff, to say, I was digging and I found a gun. Well, you did find a gun. You really didn't lie to them.
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't. Of course, I was actually, like I said, Civil War. I was hunting for Civil War relics, and then I did find a gun, and then of course it ended up being a BB gun. But of course, I was hoping it'd be the real thing, but it wasn't.
Yeah. And Allison Walker is on your side because she put in the chat, a ring is a ring, a gun is a gun, and I agree with that. I found an amazing ring on the beach. Well, it turned out to be tungsten. That's not an amazing ring to people that find rings all the time, but it was my first beach ring. Jeff found a little silver ring. We had an amazing hunt because it was his first ring on the beach, my first ring. So give us a little latitude, guys,
Yeah, that is right. Yep. My best video I've got out has got like almost 90,000 views. And it's Civil War trash pit found in Tennessee. Okay. Well, you could say any trash pit you found in the Civil War site, you could name it Civil War trash pit. So.
Yeah, but you had a good find in that though. You found a sword belt plate in that. So, am I correct on that? You did find a sword belt plate in it.
Yes, I did find the sword belt plate in the.
Yeah. So there's no way that's clickbait, and that was worthy of drawing that much attention.
And another thing, though, is when you say amazing, I mean, to you, that ring was amazing because that was your first ring, find on the beach. And anytime something's amazing to you may not be amazing to someone else. And so, there's different views on that. But when I dig up something that I've never dug before, to me, it's amazing. To me, it's epic.
You know how
to somebody else, it may not be.
Right. But you know how I do that most of the time? I say bucket list. And it was a bucket list for me,
Right.
There
exactly.
are a few things that I haven't found, you haven't found, Jeff hasn't found. They're on our bucket list. And so if we find them, mine at the top of my bucket list is a 2-center. I found everything but a 2-center. And whenever I find one, I'm going to say my most amazing, unbelievable bucket list find finally came. I'm going to play it up like that. And yes, I want people to look at the video. And yes, I want them to be as excited as I am. But is a guy that has maybe 30 or 40 2-centers going to be excited about that? No. But I'm not really trying to appeal to that person. I'm trying to appeal to the person that just went out and bought their new Garrett metal detector, and they're just now getting started in the hobby, and they're wanting to get involved.
Right, and like for me yesterday, my parents came down from East Texas to visit, and I went out and with my dad and my brother, and my dad's 77, and he gets he's got this amazing energy. I don't know where it comes from. And so we went hiking in an area that I've never explored on the creek near me. And, I brought my detector and came prepared to get in the water too, because I knew the creek would be shallow, and hoping, to find some really cool finds in the water. But lo and behold, I ended up finding, I didn't dig much of anything that cool, but I found some of the coolest fossils I've ever found. And for me, when I put that video out,
it's amazing.
I'm going to put in there. To me, it was amazing. Yeah. It turned into an amazing adventure. But it started out a metal detecting and turned into a fossil hunting.
Well,
So
I got you I got you a good title then. Me and Dad go out to metal detect and we find the most amazing fossils, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Go.
Yeah. Chris Cook, Chris Cook out of Australia had a question that he wanted to ask, and that is, what's at the top of your bucket list?
Oh man, that's hard. Because I think at most every metal detectorist, part of their top of their bucket list is probably finding a gold coin.
Yeah.
But I'd have to say, for me, I really want to find a Spanish real. And where I live, most of the areas that I would have to go, some of it's protected, of course. But I've been doing, research. What we were talking about earlier is, with the Spanish explorers coming through, some of the places where we lived, a lot of them came through those passages like we were talking about earlier, or they came through some of the river passages. And I'm lucky enough to live near some major rivers. And I found one of my oldest coins in a river not all that far from me. So
So
the
a real,
that I might,
a real is at the top of your list.
I would have to say a Spanish real is one on the top of my bucket list.
Go ahead.
You know that if you can hunt a home site that's 1857 and older, you may have good luck of finding them because they were legal. They were legal currency in the United States until 1857, and then I can't remember the exact date, but it was I know the year, and then. I mean, you may find one. So.
And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something else. In the South, for everybody that's in the South, large cents are extremely hard to find in the South because merchants here in the South did not want copper; they wanted silver. A real is easier to find in Kentucky than a large cent. A real is easier to find in Tennessee. And the same is true in Texas. It's going to be easier to find old silver than it is to find a large cent. So, if you get a large cent, that is an amazing find, but so is a real as well. Hey, guys, we got a caller in. Denny Morrison. What's going on, Denny?
Hi, Laura, and hi, Jeff, and hi, Gypsy.
Hi.
My question for you, and I hear you going into the rivers, you go up to your chin, or do you just go ankle deep or knee deep?
So I will go up to my chin. I originally, I don't know if you were listening in the earlier part of it, but when I first started metal detecting, I got into beach and surf detecting. So I would get into in the surf and the beach where the waves would go sometimes knock me over and go over my head. But same thing with river hunting. Most of the rivers around here usually are, on average, around chest deep in the deeper parts, but there are some areas that are really deep. And those areas, I do have a face mask that goes all the way over my face and has the, what do you call it, kind of like a snorkel.
Yeah.
Where I will dive down if I can reach it, but those areas are hard to retrieve your target. So hopefully this summer, what I'm hoping to do, and I've been talking to friends that have kayaks and stuff. In fact, I actually sold a metal detector yesterday to a friend of mine that lives right by the Guadalupe River, near an area where on the river where I go hunt in the river every summer. And I'm hoping this year to be able to dive down and do some detecting in some of those deeper parts of the river. But I would say for the most part, it's no deeper than chest deep or even more shallow, because it's the deeper the water, the harder it is to retrieve the target.
What are you using to retrieve the targets? I use a 5 or 6 foot wood handle shovel with a scoop on the bottom of it.
Well, that's the big issue with around here with the river that I detect in. Most of it is limestone, the bed. so it's not gravel, so I can't use a scoop. Like I have a scoop that I use at my rivers, at my lakes and my beach. But when I go to these particular rivers around here, most of it, the bedrock is limestone. So a lot of the fines get caught, in the crevices. So what I'll have to do is use a tool like some needle nose pliers to pull it out of the cracks, or I'll have to use, I have a Garrett pick thing that I use sometimes, or I'll even have to chisel part of the rock to get some of those things that get wedged in there. But a lot of it I actually retrieve with my hands. If it's in like the, sometimes you got that muck that sits on top of that bedrock. It's like not even a sand. You know what I mean?
Actually, even here in Ohio, we have hardpack in some of the lakes, and you can't dig it, but I use my foot. I always wear dive boots. I hope you wear dive boots wherever you go.
I sure do, yeah.
And but I use my foot to kick the item into the scoop. And you get into muck too. Sure, we do here too.
Yeah, and I've gotten into some rivers where the muck was so thick that I got stuck. So you have to kind of get out of it into a shallow enough part where you can kind of use your digging tool or whatever you've got to pull some of that muck over to you and then retrieve it with your foot or your hand.
Yep. I hope you wear gloves also. I mean, I don't wear a heavy pair, but I just wear always wear a pair of gloves. I always wear boots because anybody who doesn't water detect or thinking about it, there's broken glass everywhere. There's fishing lures everywhere. And you just never know what you're going to come into. And there's some pretty big fish out there, too. Had a couple snakes going in between my legs already. So
I tell you what, when you go to talking about water hunting, there are a lot of dangers in water hunting because, you can step into a hole, turn your ankle that you can't see. Like you say, Denny, you can step on a piece of broken glass. I've dug up all kinds of fishing lures that still have the hooks on them, especially in the beach. And when you get in the water, it's just it's a whole new ball game. There's no doubt about that.
It is, it's a whole
it really
new
is. My
worst
worst.
game.
Yeah, my worst part is if I'm walking through the creek and then I drop in a hole over my head. That's what I'm worried about. So.
Yeah,
and I don't know what's under the water.
Sure. A lot of the creeks around here, they use them as swimming holes in the deep areas. So got to be careful.
You really have to be careful, and that's what I like to go have someone with me, usually when I go hunt these spots, because one time that happened to me, I was in the beach in Galveston, I was hunting in the water, and I stepped into one of those huge holes in there, and if it wasn't for my scoop, using my scoop to push my way up, I might have drowned, unfortunately, so, you really got to be careful. It's a whole new learning experience hunting in the rivers and the creeks and all that. And one other thing, the bad thing about Texas is we've got a lot of snakes. I've seen more snakes in the river. So you just got to keep your eyes peeled, and turtles.
Yep. Turtles, the snapping turtles will come after you in a minute.
They will.
I hit one in a lake here in Ohio, and I knew what it was when I stepped on one. That moved. And I started back toward shore, turned around, and there was a big old snapping turtle. His neck was sticking out of the lake. And at that same time, I found the most beautiful man's ring you ever saw. I went, "Thank you, Mr. Turtle," and I kept on going back to shore.
Great story. Yeah.
Well, I'll let you go. It's you got a great guest, Loy, as usual. And,
thank you so much, Denny.
This must be Lady Hunters month, and I'm glad to have them on.
It is,
well,
ladies.
Thanks so much for calling in. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Denny, as always.
Maybe I'll see you at DIV sometime with Loy and Jeff, or even up to Texas.
Sure hope so.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Hey, thanks for the call, Denny.
Bye now.
See you in a little while, Denny.
Bye now.
Did you see the question, Jeff, in the chat that Dennis put in?
I don't know. They're going back
I did. Let me go back. All right. I dig up a lot of charcoal. Have you ever thought about doing anything with dug up charcoal?
I think he's talking about your artwork and stuff, doing charcoal paintings.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never. I've worked some with charcoal, with charcoal drawings and stuff, but I never thought about. That's something I do try to do a lot of too, is repurpose some of the finds. And something that I've always wanted to do, that's kind of on my bucket list, is I want to learn how to weld. And, we find so many interesting iron pieces of junk sometimes and things that, I want to learn to weld to be able to sculpt, some really cool sculptures and put those finds together, and make something really neat. So that's something I try to do, is repurpose a lot, but I've never tried that, but I do dig up a lot of coal, when I'm digging in some of those places, but that's a great idea.
Yeah. It'd be easy to do a picture of me with charcoal, just draw a face outline, with the charcoal on a white piece of paper, and the rest of all the top of my head is all white, so you don't have to color anything. Being an old man. I tell you what, funny. Gypsy, you have been an absolute wonderful guest. We're down at the bottom of the hour here. Go ahead and plug all of your channels. Tell us where you're going to be next and all of that. Okay.
So very next is next week. I'll be with Tim and KG at the hunt over in the small private hunt over in Crockett. And then right after that, I'll be at the Charles Garrett Memorial Hunt at the end of March. And then after that, I know there's some other stuff cooking. I will be, as I mentioned earlier, at the Main Coast, Colorado Rendezvous Treasure Hunt. And those are the ones I know for sure. And I usually go to Florida every year, so I was hoping to get over there with Mark Hoover at this next hunt that I think's coming up right after the Charles Garrett hunt. But I don't think I'm going to make it this year, but that's something I can definitely make as a goal next year. And then just thank you all again. Be sure and check out my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and Zero Discrimination. Zero Discrimination on Facebook as well. And let's see. Also, Digger's Den is the website. You can go to ddetectors.com. That's www.ddetectors. That stands for Digger's Den.
And All Metal Mode.
Check out
too.
And All Metal Mode on Monday nights, 7 p.m. Central. And I'm the co-host with Mike Hare on All Metal Mode. And next week, I think we have a guest that y'all have already had on before, is Brandon, that does the bottle digging.
Great guest.
Really great
guy.
Guest.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that because I love digging in the dumps too, as I told y'all a little earlier, and digging for bottles and any kind of relics. I just love it. And so excited about that. And then what else?
Digging in the dumps and stuck in the mud. That's just a day in the life with Gypsy, I tell you. But yeah, you've been a fabulous guest, and we've had a ball. I'm gonna let Jeff have the last word then.
Yeah, I mean it's been our honor to have you as a guest, and really appreciate everybody in the comment section, and thanks Denny for calling. So.
Yeah, and if you guys will hang on the line, I'll be back in just a moment as soon as I close out the show here. We do appreciate everybody that supports Relics Radio. We couldn't do this. It wouldn't be worth doing this without you guys. And we want you to follow us also on Podbean, on iHeartRadio, on iTunes, on Cutting Edge Network, on Good Talk Radio. If you have a chance, be sure and come over to American Digger Relic Roundup this Monday night. will be my first official duty there as producer and a co-host. But also check out Beyond Sight and Sound on Sunday and Wednesday night. Josh does a fabulous show. And All Metal Mode with Gypsy and Mike is on Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. And as I already mentioned, American Digger Relic Roundup on Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. Hardcore Metal Detecting also has a show on Thursday night and Saturday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, and they do a good job. XP Team USA is having a podcast every other Friday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, and they're doing a great job as well. And obviously, we will be back here this next week on Relics Radio on Thursday night at 8 o'clock. And I'm trying to look here, but Carolyn Harwick is our guest this next week. And so we're continuing our Women of Metal Detecting. So join us then. Thank you so much for joining us on Relics Radio. We really do appreciate it. Be sure and join us live each Thursday night at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern here on Spreaker. Or you can catch the archive show at Relics Radio on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and many other podcast outlets. Relics Radio is also syndicated on GoodTalkRadio.com and has a show each Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Arizona time. Please take a minute and hit the like button and be sure and follow us so that you'll get notifications of all of our upcoming broadcasts. You can also find us on YouTube at Diggin' with 7 or Tennessee Jeff, or you can check us out on our Relics Radio Facebook group page or Adventures in History on Facebook. If you'd like to get in touch with us, then send an email to relicsradio@outlook.com. We'd love to hear from you. We hope you'll join us for our next episode, and until then, get out there and dig some history.
Yeah.